were all wondering, was there any problem in Nasrallah's pedigree?
Do we want to take that up now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me point out how this story got going.
Go ahead.
Carl Raswan, in his Raswan Index, stated that El Nassr was, what was it he stated? I can't remember exactly. Anyway, indicated that he was not.
There were two El Nassrs.
There were two El Nassrs. There were two El Nassrs. Raswan got the wrong El Nassr. And that's what people started picking up on, thinking that that El Nassr was the El Nassr that Abu El Futa that imported from Henry Faraon. The El Nassr in Raswan's book could never have been the same El Nassr that was imported to Egypt, because the birth dates were totally different, and the time that they raced was totally different. When I first came to Egypt, the herd book, Fuad Abbas's herd book, was the only herd book for Egypt. There was a general stud book that was for racing and everything else. But the herd book was not accepted by our Department of Agriculture. I think Omar touched on this, but this is all relevant, so just please understand. Because of this, we would have had to pay a horrendous tax on these three fillies, these three horses we imported from Egypt, because we could not, they were not accepted as purebred Arabians by our Department of Agriculture, because Egypt did not have a recognized stud book. You understand? So I started doing some investigation, and eventually we were able to convince through the Racing Horse Registry that some of these horses were desert bred. There was no way you could trace them. You know, that they were foundation horses going back to the desert. And the only way you could prove it then, prove their quality, was through their offspring. Well, eventually, the Department of Agriculture accepted the herd book, and then, of course, Syed Mari eventually was able to start the EAO as a registry for all private breeders.
So there's no problem with the pedigree?
Let me finish. I'm just giving you how I began to start doing the research, not just on Nasrallah, on all the desert breds, Eldera, Mashan, Nebraska. I mean, even Gulson and I, when we were doing the Abbas Pasha manuscript, we were asking some of the old, and the old, what was his name, Abdulaziz El-Sabah, about some of these original horses that came in. So I just went about trying to document everything that I could, because I was interested to learn. Not that they weren't pure, but where did they come from? Even the Zabayan horses from Inshas. I mean, we really knew very little about them. Maybe you knew the strain, that was about it. Who gave them? Nobody seemed to know who gave them anymore. But going back to El Nassr, because Raswan was wrong in his book, people said, well, you know, they're using an impure horse. Well, that was not correct. So when Doug Marshall and I were doing some of the importing, we checked into that, because we heard about this problem, and we went to Henry Faraon and we did a good deal of research on it, checked the racing records. It was impossible that El Nassr could have been the El Nassr from Egypt. Somehow or another, people have still got this thing in their head, but not only did we check on it, Edward Al-Dadish checked on it. He even knew Henry Faraon. And we knew who the tribes were, where this horse came from. He raced in Lebanon. His racing record was there, and his Siren Dam was there. So there was no question. There was no question. There's less question about Nasrallah than there is about some of those old
you
shots.
believe in your deepest self that there's nothing wrong with this pedigree? Yes or no?
Absolutely. People keep saying to me, let me finish. Keep saying, well, you didn't use Nasrallah in your breeding program. I said, what do you mean we didn't use Nasrallah in our breeding? Pick up the gold book. There's several horses in there that were of Nasrallah breeding. We carry our prefix. Now, these were horses that we did not later on carry on with. We paid $55,000 at a Pyramid Society sale for them here that carried Nasrallah blood. I mean, that was not chicken feed in those days. So, and as far as the Minstrel Desperado, unfortunately, that is a marketing
Game.
what's the word? Ploy. No, I mean, we were also members of the Desperado syndicate. And we also used
Which
it.
means she owns part of this.
Which I own. Whether you want to breed Babson or whether you want to breed what Arabians Limited has done, whether you want to use Ansana breeding, whatever, that's a matter of personal choice.